Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics as we continue our journey towards integrity in the silver market. And in terms of a positive solution for one of the biggest obstacles, which unfortunately has been the CFTC, mentioned a little bit a week or two ago that I don't know. It just seemed like we've been waiting 41 years, let alone their investigation, which started February 1st. Day before arguably the greatest single day demand of silver in history on February 2nd, yet we saw the price fall 10%. A lot of other things that don't add up that I've been asking. I've submitted 2 rounds of evidence to the CFTC's website whistleblower program, and I don't really have much faith in them doing the right things because, as you will see here, I provided what I like to think is a way of playing inside honorable rules and legal and not harming anyone, but just allowing the truth to speak for itself and allowing a way if people support what is in here, then there's a way that you can support that and put pressure on in what I feel is a moral and ethical way. And certainly understand this might not be for some people, and I respect that as well. But with that said, how about I take a quick read through it so everyone can be clear on what we are talking about. And again, I appreciate your time and listening to what we have here. So the topic at hand is, will the CFTC honor its oath in the silver market? I would ask, are you frustrated with the manipulation in the silver market? Have you lost faith that the CFTC will ever maintain its oath to serve its public constituents rather than the banks who've been violating the CFTC's own laws? Are you tired of watching what's been happening with precious metals since the Hunt brothers in 1980, but wish there was a way you could actually do something about it? Well, if so, then you're in the right place, because for anyone who thinks the CFTC has betrayed its mission to serve the public, this campaign has been created specifically to finally hold the agency accountable. February 1st, when the silver price rose above $30 just for a few hours in response to record silver demand. I mean, people were buying silver, the price was going up. Yet when the price goes up, acting CFTC Commissioner Rostin Benham launched a new investigation into silver manipulation. Yet despite then seeing the price fall 10% the following day, on what by some metrics was far and away the single greatest day of silver demand in history, the CFTC has yet to comment. A lot of things that I've detailed on the show that there's a lot of evidence out there. There's a lot of links in this campaign, and I mentioned the agency has received detailed evidence that I've provided through its whistleblower program. You can click on that link and see one of the files I submitted. See if you'd like answers to those questions. There's confirmation of criminal market influencing statements by Goldman Sachs commodity chief Jeff Curry, and more fraudulent activity by JP Morgan, who the agency has already fined $920 million. And again, these are not just random statements. There are links you can click on to see exactly what is supporting those assertions. Yet amazingly, the same fraudulent trading activity continues on, perhaps more blatantly than ever, which means that the investors that the agency is supposed to be protecting are continuing to get ripped off. It's almost ironic that they today reported Bernie Madoff's death, and this happened to be the day that I was getting ready to launch that. That was most certainly not planned, but sorry when the man passed away. But same exact thing that happened with the SEC and Bernie Madoff, as detailed eloquently in Harry Markopoulos's book. I forget the title of his book, but great book in either case. Details how a lot of money could have been saved had the SEC not ignored the evidence, which is the same thing we've seen here. Keep in mind, this is the same agency that once said they found no evidence of silver manipulation after their investigation in 2013. Yet years later, in March of 2019, when I spoke with former Commissioner Bart Chilton, he revealed that they had found plenty. In fact, he even mentioned that he was disappointed in how several of the other commissioners were blocking. He actually talked about how they blocked evidence from people who were submitting the evidence. Maybe that had something to do with why they didn't find it. Yet Nonetheless, the same activity the banks have been repeatedly fined for continues to occur. There are legitimate questions that I can say I've personally stayed up late at night many a time for years, answering and responding to emails or phone calls from the CFTC's own constituents, and I don't have access to the trading records, the subpoena power, and I don't have their $304 million taxpayer-funded budget either. And I'm not sure why I'm doing that and they don't have anything to say. And not just that I am doing that, a lot of the other very patriotic people in the gold and silver community who also speak up about these things while the CFTC ignores its oath that swore an oath to protect, yet instead have been the same taxpayers who are paying that are the ones who are being served as victims to the banks. The agency is supposed to be protecting them from. Well, fortunately, the way this campaign is structured is that people can pledge money, and if the CFTC simply answers the questions below, the money will go to a charitable cause. Happy to host a respectful conversation, and I mean that, where these issues can be addressed on my own channel or any other method in which the public's given sufficient answers. The CFTC does provide answers. The money pledged will go to supporting the victims of the tragic child trafficking issues that have surfaced in recent years. However, if the CFTC refuses to answer, even after the money has been pledged, that would go towards a cause where some people could really use some help, then the money will instead be used to file a suit against the CFTC for criminal and negligent action. The CFTC was a key culprit in allowing the banks to default on their gold and silver customers back in 1980. And they've gone out of their way at every turn since to guarantee a similarly damaging outcome for the public once again. At least for me, this reasonable period of time to be extended to the CFTC to honor its oath has expired. And if you'd like answers to the following questions, I would ask you to consider supporting this campaign. Questions I'd like the CFTC to address are, does the CFTC think there was criminal trading activity on February 2nd, 2021? Has the CFTC reviewed the evidence I submitted on February 12th, 2021? And there was also a second round. I don't remember the exact date, but after that, I followed up through their system, got the form response. I saw it. I don't have their access to resources. Hopefully they saw it. Hopefully they can explain why they've allowed it to continue. And I've detailed it quite amply in all these links you see here for the past couple months. Does the CFTC have any issues with the SLV prospectus changes that were made on February 3rd, but not announced publicly by the trust, the authorized participants, or the custodian, yet I found out about it because Ronan Manley of Bullion Star wrote it? Does the CFTC examine the statements made by Goldman Sachs commodity chief Jeff Curry on February 2nd and February 4th, where the man either lied or committed a very costly mistake that, given Goldman Sachs' influence and what they advertise as an advisor in the markets, I believe substantially moved the market with a misleading statement, whether intentional or not. Hopefully the CFTC is examining that. That's something I think investors would be worthy of having an answer to. Can the CFTC explain why JP Morgan is still allowed to participate in the gold and silver markets despite its track record of criminal behavior and even being labeled as a criminal enterprise by the Department of Justice? Has the CFTC seen this petition that thousands of their constituents have signed requesting that JP Morgan be permanently banned from trading gold and silver? And if so, or if not, what is your response to that? What oversight is in place to make sure that JP Morgan's accounting on the silver in the trust that it acts as custodian for is accurate? Does the CFTC know that JP Morgan's a custodian for multiple trusts? Is the CFTC monitoring the audit procedures for the SLV trust? Is the CFTC concerned with the issues I found just by calling iShares regarding the audit facilities of the SLV trust? Here's an important one. What efforts have been made to compensate the investors who lost money to these crimes? CFTC set aside $311 million of those $920 million for victim compensation. Now, I have trades that were darn well certainly affected by that, but they were not COMEX futures, so they've told me there's no restitution available to me. think there's a lot of other people who have valid claims that they were directly affected. And also, what has the CFTC done to make sure that people who do have claims that fit those categories, has that money been dispersed? Has JP Morgan paid its fine? Where has the rest of that money gone? I feel those are relevant questions. Why did the CFTC say they found no evidence of manipulation back in 2013? And then in 2019, when I talked to Bart Chilton, he described finding plenty of evidence that was damn well directly relevant to what's happened before then and since then, and continues to cost people money. Well, the CFTC says nothing. Does the agency feel that what Bart Chilton described was material information that should have been made public earlier? I know on the website, Ralston Benham is advertised as a lawyer. I'm curious, does he think that is a material obstruction of justice? Especially given what the CFTC announced last year, where they found hundreds of thousands of occasions of fraud. Bart Chilton knew about it. He knew about it back then, but the CFTC didn't say anything to the people who were affected by it. And I still don't know anyone who's received their restitution. What did the CFTC do to the commissioners who blocked evidence over the same period of time where the CFTC later found hundreds of thousands of occasions of fraud? JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs have repeatedly gone over the position limits, despite Jeff Curry of Goldman Sachs saying the reason a short squeeze in silver is impossible is because of position limits. And when I called the CME, they just said, well, they may have, they're either in violation of the limit or they have a hedging exemption. I said, which of the two was it? They say that's not public. Well, how are investors supposed to know? I think that's relevant given the history here. And if they're really given an exemption, what is the verification that the CFTC is doing to make sure that is actually a valid hedge exemption? I've yet to find someone that's believable in the silver industry that has explained that. I talked to most of the mining companies. They're not hedging. And why does the hedged amount that shows up on the CO2 report seem to go directly up and down with what happens with the positioning changes? So also, can the CFTC explain the actions it took back in 1980 when silver went from $50 and then margins were raised? I've heard a lot of other stuff. I'd love to hear what if they feel that was well handled, that's how they would handle it again. I think that's relevant to people in the silver market, especially given that the CFTC found hundreds of thousands of occasions of fraud that they felt were worthy of a $920 million fine. I personally feel these are reasonable questions that the CFTC can address without interfering with any legal processes. If you agree and you'd like to support this action to incentivize the CFTC to finally address these, then I ask you to consider supporting this campaign, whether financially or just by sharing this message. Remember that every Goliath has an Achilles, and the CFTC is no different. They've never been more vulnerable to public scrutiny, and with more attention focused on the silver manipulation case than ever, this is your chance to finally help hold them accountable. Now, they can either honor their oath and end the fraud in the silver market or be exposed for abusing their power. So I thank you for taking the time and consideration in reading this letter. And if this message resonates with you, I look forward to being your humble servant in restoring honor and integrity to the silver market that so many of us still do care about. I am Chris Marcus. I thank you for being with me and watching this. And if you'd like to find out more, the link is in the description below. You can find me at arcadiaeconomics.com. And I do appreciate you watching this video, and I will see you again soon.